Jim McCormick is a world record and North Pole skydiver. He's earned an MBA and is a former corporate chief operating officer. Jim is an expert in using intelligent risk-taking to improve performance and helping organizations create a culture that yields innovation.
I had an opportunity to take a significant risk when I was invited to be the surprise grand finale to the opening ceremonies of the Triathlon World Championships. It was only the second time they'd ever been held in the United States. They're being held in downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Exciting opportunity, because while I'm one of 400 professional exhibition skydivers in the United States, very few of us have had the opportunity to jump into a highly developed urban setting. It's difficult to get authorization, and it's a very challenging jump. Because, see, a modern parachute needs to be landed into the wind, just like a plane. That means you have to anticipate the direction the winds are blowing as they make their way through all of the buildings and all the obstacles that exist. Not a bad-sized landing area. Of course, you need to allow for the fact that along the curves of the landing area, there's street lights. From street light to street light, there's wires. Then across the three intersections that are in the landing area, there's cables that support the traffic lights. So it's not quite as open as it would appear. That was a problem, because in the absence of a headwind, I was no longer heading for the landing area. I was now heading for the buildings beyond the landing area. Solution: double back to a lower point in anticipation of a flatter glide slope. Having done that, things seemed to be improving until something happened I didn't anticipate. It was Cleveland. It was August. It was hot. I was getting substantial thermal lift off the paved surfaces and the rooftops. So a second time I doubled back to an even lower point in anticipation of a very flat glide slope, knowing this was the last time I could do it, because by now I'm getting near the rooftops that surround Public Square.
Jim McCormick is a nationally recognized author and expert on intelligent risk-taking.
Jim McCormick knows risk. He's a world-class skydiver who's jumped out of planes nearly 3,000 times from as high as 31,000 feet. But Jim's true expertise in risk is helping people go for their American dream. So what does Jim know about risk that the rest of us don't?
Clearly at this moment we are confronted with some significant challenges. But my guess is for this group, that's a very familiar situation. Like the challenge of always starting at just about zero on the credibility scale when you get started with a new client and having to work up from there. The challenge of being in environments where you have to be able to make decisions on the fly. You have to be able to make decisions based on not much more than instinct at times, because there's just not enough time. The challenge of prevailing when confronted with significant competition from increasingly aggressive and very capable organizations. The challenge of figuring out how to get your clients' employees past their personal fears about change so they can then become supporters of the change that you know needs to be implemented in their organization that could also undermine the whole concept.
Jim was a member of an international expedition that skydived to the North Pole and holds numerous skydiving world records. He draws on these and other extraordinary experiences to engage his audiences. Jim works closely with his clients to extensively customize each presentation to assure that he's delivering the exact message his clients want the audience to receive in a lively, upbeat, and memorable way.
Now from 20,000 feet, we have approximately 60 seconds of what's called working time. From the time we leave the plane to the time we need to part ways so that we can get sufficient separation to be safe, we have 60 seconds to try to build these intricate formations. And you need to understand, building a world record is not a random experience. It's not a matter of throwing a bunch of people out of the plane and see how many people can find each other before it's time to leave. It's a matter of submitting the exact formation that you claim you're going to build to the 3 judges that are on site. It has to be witnessed and observed by 3 judges who are accredited by the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale from Lucerne, Switzerland, the keeper of all aviation world records. They have to see the jump as it actually occurs. You have to have it all documented by videographers so you can prove that exactly the formation you built was created, or that you intended to build was created, and that everybody who left the plane joined the formation in their pre-assigned location. Think of making your way down I-25 at about 120 miles an hour through afternoon traffic, and then stopping in your garage without going through the back wall. That's the equivalent of what we're doing. We're getting there very quickly, slowing down, matching the fall rate, and not putting any momentum into the formation if it's going to work. Because you need a lot of lift capacity. You need something like C-130 Hercules military transports at $400 million a copy to help get you in the air. Because you can put 80 skydivers in each one. Now that means you're doing the math. We want to break the current record, which is 357. We need about 5 of these puppies. The entire Air Force of Thailand has 12. We need a couple on the ground to back us up. Matter of fact, we need 5 of them. This shot was taken 2 weeks ago today at Udon Thani, Thailand, as the 5 Hercules C-130s taxied up to pick us up for our 3rd attempt of the day. One of the challenges of leaving a C-130, until 2.5 weeks ago, I'd never done it before, is at these altitudes, we have an indicated speed in excess of 200 miles an hour. We're normally exiting an aircraft at 85 to 90 miles an hour. That means when you leave and you hit the slipstream, it's like being shot out of a cannon. If that's not bad enough, there's somebody right behind you who is now a cannonball headed at you.
Jim McCormick is a highly regarded author, having drawn on his expertise in intelligent risk-taking and creating innovative organizations to write The Power of Risk, Business Lessons from the Edge, Motivational Selling, and 365 Daily Doses of Courage.
Jim McCormick, you wrote the book on risk, literally The Power of Risk. You're a skydiver, you live risk. You say humans have a strange relationship with risk.
Risk is meant to be a celebration. Done correctly, it results in success, joy, fulfillment. The problem is almost all of us suffer by a risk imbalance. The other side of the risk equation is judgment. When we're young, we don't have much of it. That's why the risk has to be suppressed out of us. We're socialized that way. But here's the imbalance. As we get older, we have life experiences and some wisdom we didn't have before. We don't bring our risk quotient back up to match it. There's the imbalance.
Well, how do we do that then? How can we fix that?
It's POSSUMs, Possibility of Success Enhancement Measures. It's doing your homework so that the chances of your success are considerably higher than they would be otherwise. And John Paul was leading to it. There's 2 kinds of risks. There's actual risk and there's perceived risk. And there's commonly a substantial variance. We think we're risking much more than we actually are. And by doing our homework, we close that gap. There are things we all do without exception that limit our performance unnecessarily. And that's what we're talking about. And when you're experiencing them, when you're allowing them to creep into your life, they put you in the zone. Sadly, that is not the zone you hear associated with athletics. That's the performance zone. Instead, we're in our comfort zone. And as you all know, we never do our best work in our comfort zone. Now, I'm going to tell you about some of the most demanding skydive I've ever experienced. But far more importantly, I'm going to give you the 4 steps you can use professionally and personally to exceed terminal velocity. And I want to emphasize personally. I was at terminal velocity in my skydiving career. I had 333 jumps and I was a competent recreational skydiver. But soon after I started skydiving, New Year's Day, Rose Bowl game, Pasadena, California, pregame ceremonies, out of the sky came the Navy exhibition skydiving team. And they were carrying the game ball. And they had American flags flying behind them, and they landed precisely on the 50-yard line. And I went, oof, I want to do that. I want to do just like those guys. So my opportunity came along. I was invited to jump into a horse show. Not exactly the Rose Bowl. But you have to start someplace. Fear voice came to me. Fear voice comes to us whenever we're confronted with change, confronted with something that we've done before, perhaps it didn't work, when we're forced to do something sooner than we want to, or perhaps that we don't want to do at all, and said,
Jim, get out of here now before anybody else shows up. You can just say you got lost.
Now, fortunately, we all have a confidence voice too, and you all know that. You're good at tuning it in. The important thing to be aware of is our fear voice will always outshout it. So we need to pay extra attention to that confidence voice. It's there. It's the voice that we're relying on when we're thinking, well, it didn't work last time, but I'm doing things differently this time. Or I've had past successes in this area. There's no reason I can't transfer them into successes in this pursuit. My guess is for many of you, this is a second career, and you've leveraged some of the successes in your previous career to be successful in this environment. Confidence voice said, Jim, if you leave now, you'll never be invited back. You'll never find out if this is something you can do. One of the most significant determinants in people's success and people's level of happiness is how they respond to change. And there's effectively, simplistically stated, there's 2 responses. There's the people that say, change, interesting, where's the opportunity? And there's the people that say, change, dig in my heels, fight it, try to keep it from happening. Where does that one go? Obviously, it's not successful. The change will overwhelm them. Ultimately, the change will prevail. But in the meantime, they will have put a lot of time and energy into trying to keep it from occurring. You can see this individually. You also can see it in some economic sectors. People say, oh, we're going to just fight the change and try to keep it from happening. Well, of course, it doesn't occur. And they just end up in a worse place than they would be otherwise. Then you see the people that say, change. Interesting. Where's the opportunity? I see some new products coming down the line. You heard about one of them this morning. The TLC products also, and the Cornerstone products, stuff like that. Change. Interesting. Where's the opportunity?
While it's not a fit for every meeting or venue, when it is, having Jim arrive by parachute is truly spectacular. If you choose to have Jim arrive at your event from the air, it will be whenever it fits your schedule and purposes. It can be immediately before he presents, or it can be earlier or later in the meeting. Whenever it occurs, it will help to reinforce the message of Jim's presentation and be long remembered.
Joe, I'm here.
Oh my God, Jim. That's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim McCormick.
I just did a jump, and you may not have thought of these in terms, but so have you. Actually, you've left the plane. You're in free fall. You've taken a significant risk. All of you. The only question is how the jump will turn out. This is where you find yourself. And you see, when we leave a plane, it's not unlike when we return back to the office on Monday. We're subject to a lot of forces. In our case, we're subject to physical forces. When we leave a plane, we're traveling from 50 to up to 200 miles an hour. And all those forces create an opportunity to exploit them for our benefit, or an opportunity for them to work against us, just like the market forces and the competitive forces that you're confronted with on a daily basis.
Jim customizes his universal message of the power of intelligent risk-taking as a potent performance improvement strategy to all kinds of audiences. About half of Jim's audiences are salespeople who find Jim's message particularly relevant. In his many years as a professional speaker, Jim has developed sales-specific content that is responsive to the unique challenges of sales professionals. The last few minutes of this video shows Jim presenting some of this material. Being a solution provider.
Or the fear of leaving your comfort zone, where we all get comfortable of doing things certain ways. Leaving your comfort zone by transitioning from selling the product to really selling yourself because you're the solution provider.
Expanding your client base.
I'm talking about risks like digging deeper to create more significant client relationships. I was talking to one of your colleagues, one of the people in the room this morning, and it was interesting. He said, I have 1,000 advisors that I call on, 1,000, but most of my business comes from 100. He said, the next 200, they've written something every now and again, and the next 100 after that, they're thinking about it. And our discussion was, what do you do to drill down past 100? What are you doing to generate that in that 100 to that 150? I thought it was a very interesting discussion. I'm sure all of you are doing it. It's a reminder. Staying ahead of change, seeing yourself as the ultimate solution, not the products. And I think we also heard that the previous presenter saying, at the end of the day, it's you, it's your expertise that they're really buying.
Being a person of attraction.
Positioning yourself as a person of attraction. What's a person of attraction? A person of attraction is somebody that people want to do business with because of your personality, because you exude success, because they say, I don't know what it is about that person, but I like doing business with them. Matter of fact, I want to be similar to them in certain ways. That's a person of attraction.
Cold calling.
Cold calling does not need to be difficult. It's very simple. Believe in what you're selling. If you don't believe in what you're selling, you don't belong here. You have to believe in your product. If you don't, your customers will see right through you. Second thing is put yourself in your customer's shoes. It is not about your sales goals. It's not about the products that you've been incentivized to sell. It's about how you can best meet their needs. You know that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. But it's particularly critical in a sales environment. It's not, hey, have you seen the new product I have? It's, hey, what can we do to help you? Next part is making sure you separate yourself from the inevitable rejection. And why do I say this? It is almost never about you. It is almost never about you. It is probably because there's a multitude of things going on in their lives and you don't yet know them well enough to have that sensitivity. But the rejection is not about you, so do not personalize it. Not letting the fear and anxiety win. Where does fear and anxiety, how does it manifest when it wins? The big P word, procrastination. It doesn't happen. Final element of cold calling is doing it. Just setting aside time and doing it. It doesn't matter if it's in person or on the phone, doing it.
Exploiting opportunities.
You're being presented with new products. You're being presented with new opportunities. You have to ask yourself a question. Am I going to be on the train when it leaves the station? Or am I going to be standing there on the platform? It's that simple. Life presents us with new opportunities. You're being presented with new opportunities. You've got to decide where you're going to fit into that matrix. I can't make the decision for you. And if nothing else, you think about where you're going to fit in all of that, then I've done you a favor this morning. And I encourage you to ask yourself that question.
The 3 most common sales fears.
What are the 3 most common sales fears? What would you guess? What do you think the fear that is most commonly, the salespeople will most commonly report when they're candid? Any suggestions?
No. Public speaking.
Public speaking, that's one. Motivational speakers, that's another one. Exactly. You came up front, rejection. Far and away the most common sales fear. My comment about that is this. I've done this with sales forces many, many times. I've set it up. Said, okay, here's your deal. We're not going to tell. You're going to be like the purchaser. You're going to be like the customer. And here's what's going on. Your kid's in jail. Your wife wants to leave you. Your house is being foreclosed. And this guy's going to try to sell you something. This person is immensely distracted. You then set up the other person and say, okay, you're going to try to sell me, you want to kind of engage, you want to develop some rapport, you'd like to be able to work with the design department. And the person, then they're sitting there, and this guy's going, man, I just can't get through them. And then I go to the person that has been set up as a salesperson. What was going on there? He didn't like me. He had no clue. It was not about him. So my comment about this is, yes, rejection is an innate part of the sales process, but almost never is it about you. And why is that important? Because it's critical that you not personalize it. The next most common sales fear, probably won't surprise you, is the fear of failure. And you might be thinking, hey, yeah, you're right. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Understand, failure, the fear of failure is a powerful motivator. It's an inferior motivator, but it's a powerful motivator. And here's what I mean by that. Yes, you can be moderately successful if you're primarily motivated by a fear of failure. It would be akin to this. Could you be reasonably successful in a bicycle race if you went out with a 40-year-old Schwinn, 10 speed? Yeah, if you really trained, really conditioned, and worked hard, you could maybe show. Now, how much more successful would you be if you went out and bought an $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 bike and put forth the same effort? That's the difference between being motivated by fear and motivated by an innate sense of confidence, knowing that you have expertise that your customers need, and it makes you indispensable. That's a whole different approach. What's the 3rd most common fear that salespeople experience? This one may surprise you. Any suggestions?
Success.
Exactly right. The fear of success. You're thinking, wait a second. That's what I'm working so hard to be, is successful. Well, have you observed in some salespeople, they consistently get to a certain level and never go beyond? That could well be a fear of success. And what's that about? At the end of the day, when you boil it down, it's about a fear of change. Because as you continue to excel, as you move to higher levels of achievement, expectations will change. The expectations you place on yourself, the expectations your peers and your management places on you, the expectations your family places on you. Well, if you did it last year, can't you do it again next year and even do better? Fear of success can be a profound limiter. If that resonates at all for you, think about whether you perhaps have some of that fear of change that's keeping you from moving up to another level of performance.
Your increased ability.
Our perception of what we're capable of contracts as we age. Don't let it. Yes, we can do less physically. but we can do a lot more in other areas if we leverage our life experiences and convert them into wisdom. We have more capabilities today. You are more capable today in many ways than you were 5 years ago. Don't forget that.
Jim's goal for every presentation is always the same, making his client the hero by enjoyably and memorably delivering the message they want their audience to receive. To check on Jim's availability or to request additional information, just contact the organization that directed you to or provided you with this video.